remember the exact moment our marriage shattered. It wasn't when I found the texts, or the credit card receipts for hotel rooms I never saw. It was a Tuesday afternoon in April, when I picked up our family portrait from the framer. "Such a beautiful family," the elderly man said as he handed me the large, heavy frame. "Our 10th anniversary gift to ourselves, a professional photo shoot with matching cream sweaters against the backdrop of autumn leaves." Michael's arm wrapped around my waist, my head leaning on his shoulder, both of us smiling like we knew something the camera didn't. "Yes, we are," I replied automatically, the lie settling between my teeth like a stone. I placed the portrait carefully in the trunk of my car, making sure it wouldn't slide around on the drive home. Michael would be at work until late, always at work, always late, always with a reason that sounded rehearsed. I had stopped believing him 3 months ago when I borrowed his laptop to check our joint account and saw the notification pop up. "Can't wait to see you tonight. Same room as last time." His password was my birthday. How poetic, I thought, that he would protect his secrets with the day I came into this world. I didn't confront him then. Instead, I became a detective in my own home, gathering evidence with methodical precision. Hotel charges every Thursday, missing cologne bottles, the way he would shower as soon as he came home. Driving home with our portrait, I felt hollow. The frame cost more than our first dinner date, back when we were college seniors with nothing but student loans and big dreams. The glass was museum quality, the saleswoman had explained. It would protect our memories from fading. But what about memories that deserve to fade? I hung the portrait above our fireplace that evening, replacing the temporary cardboard frame it had lived in for months. When Michael came home, he kissed my cheek absently and said it looked nice. Then he went upstairs to shower. That night, I lay beside him, listening to his breathing. 10 years of marriage, a mortgage nearly paid off, a summer cabin we renovated together, splinter by splinter. No children. We'd tried, then stopped trying, then argued about whether to keep trying. Looking back, maybe that was the first crack. Or maybe it was the promotion he took that required constant travel, or the slow drift that happens when two people stop seeing each other, really seeing each other. The next morning, I called a lawyer before he woke up. Not because I was ready to leave, I wasn't, but because I needed to know my options. Knowledge is power, my mother always said. The same mother who stayed with my father through 3 affairs because that's what marriage is. I'd promised myself I wouldn't repeat her life. "Mrs. Bennett," the lawyer said after I explained my situation, "gathering evidence is smart, but confrontation is inevitable. What do you want the outcome to be?" I stared out the window at our perfectly manicured lawn. What did I want? The question lingered like smoke. "I want him to know that I know," I said finally. "And I want him to feel what I'm feeling." That evening, I watched Michael eat the dinner I'd prepared, his favorite, beef Wellington with roasted potatoes. I watched him compliment the meal, ask about my day, perform the role of devoted husband, all while his phone buzzed in his pocket, and he pretended not to notice. "I scheduled a couples therapy session," I announced as he took his last bite. His fork paused midway to his mouth. "Why would we need therapy?" I took a sip of wine, letting the silence expand between us. "Because I know about Thursdays, Michael. I know about the Parkview Hotel and room 412. I know her name is Claire, and she works in your marketing department." The color drained from his face. Not denial. Not surprise that I knew. Just the blank shock of a man whose parallel lives had finally collided. "I don't," he started. "Don't," I cut him off. "Don't insult me with lies. We've known each other for 15 years. I recognize the look on your face." He pushed his plate away, suddenly not hungry. "What do you want me to say?" "Nothing yet. But on Thursday at 7 p.m., you're going to meet me instead of her. And you're going to explain to a therapist why you thought our vows had an asterisk." That night, I slept in the guest room, under the gaze of the family portrait I'd moved there. In the morning light, I noticed a crack in the frame, tiny, barely visible. The museum-quality glass hadn't protected us after all. Thursday arrived with the weight of a funeral. I dressed carefully. A navy blue dress Michael had once said brought out my eyes, hair pulled back in a simple knot, minimal makeup. Not for him, but for myself. Armor comes in many forms. The therapist's office smelled of lavender and old books. Dr. Sharma, A woman with silver-streaked hair and kind eyes welcomed us into a room with 3 chairs arranged in a triangle. Michael sat rigidly, eyes darting between the clock and the door as if calculating escape routes. "I'm glad you both made it," Dr. Sharma said, her accent gentle but her gaze penetrating. "Sarah, since you initiated this session, perhaps you'd like to begin." I looked at my husband of 10 years, the man whose morning breath I knew, whose nightmares I'd soothed, whose body I could map in darkness. Suddenly, words seemed inadequate. "Michael has been having an affair," I said simply. "For how long, I don't know. With whom, I do know. Why, that's what I'm here to understand." Michael's jaw tightened, a muscle pulsing beneath his skin. "It's not that simple," he said, the first words he'd spoken since we'd left the house. "Affairs rarely are," Dr. Sharma replied. "But perhaps you could help Sarah understand your perspective." He shifted in his chair, fingers drumming against his thigh. "I didn't plan it," he started, then stopped. "I don't know what you want me to say. The truth would be novel," I said, surprised by the bitterness in my voice. Dr. Sharma nodded encouragingly. "Michael, what was happening in your life, in your marriage, when this began?" He exhaled slowly. Everything felt so heavy. The house, the job, the expectations. Sarah wanted children. Then she didn't. Then she did again. The fertility treatments. The disappointments. Every month watching her face fall. He paused. Claire was easy. No history, no pressure. Just lightness. Each word was a needle. I had carried our fertility struggles silently, never showing him the bruises from injections, never waking him with my crying. I thought I was protecting him. He thought I was distant. "So this is my fault?" I asked, my voice surprisingly steady. "No," he said quickly. "God, no. It's me. I'm weak. I'm selfish. But I didn't know how to be what you needed anymore." Dr. Sharma interjected gently. "It sounds like there's been a communication breakdown. Michael, have you expressed these feelings to Sarah before today?" He shook his head, staring at his hands. "And Sarah, did you know Michael felt this way about your journey together?" I thought about our quiet dinners, our polite conversations about work and weather, the growing space between us in bed. I knew something was wrong, I admitted, but I thought it was grief. I thought we were grieving together. Michael looked up, surprise in his eyes. "I didn't know you were grieving. You always seem so composed." A bitter laugh escaped me. "I cried in the shower so you wouldn't hear. I scheduled my appointments when you were at work so you wouldn't have to come. I thought I was being strong for us." Dr. Sharma made a note. "It sounds like you both were protecting each other in ways that ultimately created distance. But only one of us broke our vows," I said, unable to keep the edge from my voice. Michael's face flushed. "I know. I'm not making excuses. I got lost." For the next 40 minutes, we excavated our marriage like archaeologists, uncovering artifacts of resentment and miscommunication. The fertility treatments I underwent alone. The promotion he took that required travel because he thought I wanted a bigger house. The baby clothes I'd hidden in a box under our bed. The sleep medication he'd been taking secretly for years. As the session neared its end, Dr. Sharma asked the question hovering in the air. "Where do you want to go from here?" Michael looked at me, really looked at me, for what felt like the first time in years. "I'll end it with Claire," he said. "Today, if you're willing to try." I studied his face, searching for the man I married. "Ending it isn't enough," I said finally. "I need to know if there's anything left between us worth saving." Dr. Sharma nodded. "That's a question that takes time to answer. Would you both be willing to continue these sessions?" Michael nodded immediately. I hesitated, then said, "I'll come next week. After that, I don't know." As we left the office, the evening air felt sharp against my skin. Michael reached for my hand, then thought better of it, shoving his hands in his pockets instead. "I'm sorry," he said, the words hanging between us like smoke. "I know," I replied. And I did know, but knowledge and healing are different creatures entirely. At home, I noticed the empty chair at our dining table where he usually sat. Tonight, neither of us would sit there. I would take a bath, he would sleep in the guest room, and tomorrow we would begin the delicate work of deciding whether to rebuild or demolish. Rain tapped against the bedroom window, a gentle rhythm that failed to lull me to sleep. 3 weeks had passed since the therapy session. 3 weeks of careful distance, of polite conversations about groceries and bills, of Michael sleeping in the guest room. He'd ended things with Claire, or so he said. I hadn't asked for proof. Trust, once broken, doesn't reassemble with ease. I'd taken to walking in the evenings, sometimes for hours, letting my feet carry me through neighborhoods I'd never explored despite living in Boston for 12 years. On these walks, I would call my sister in Chicago, the only person I'd told about Michael's betrayal. You don't have to decide anything right now, she'd reminded me yesterday. Time is on your side. Time. Such a strange companion in crisis. Sometimes it crawled, the minutes ticking by as I lay awake listening to the house settle. Other times it rushed. Another week gone. Another therapy session approached. Another decision postponed. Michael and I continued our sessions with Dr. Sharma. We'd moved from blame to understanding, though forgiveness remained a distant shore. In our third session, she'd asked us to write letters to each other, not to exchange, but to articulate our feelings. Mine began, I don't know if I can ever trust you again, but I'm trying to remember why I fell in love with you. His began, I've spent so long trying to be who I thought you wanted that I forgot who we were together. We were homework partners in our own marriage, dutifully completing assignments, sharing revelations in measured doses. Last week, Dr. Sharma suggested we try a date night. Not to reconnect romantically, she clarified, but to remember who you are outside of this crisis. So tonight, I was meeting Michael at Lucia's, the Italian restaurant where we'd celebrated our first anniversary. I put on a green dress I'd bought during one of my aimless walks, applied mascara for the first time in weeks, and slipped on heels that clicked purposefully against the hardwood floors. Michael was already at the table when I arrived, standing nervously as I approached. He'd gotten a haircut, I noticed, and he was wearing the charcoal sweater I'd given him last Christmas. You look beautiful, he said, pulling out my chair. Thank you, I replied, unsure how to navigate these familiar courtesies in our new reality. We ordered wine, studied menus we'd memorized years ago, and exchanged small talk about work and weather. It was painfully cordial, like dining with a colleague rather than the man who'd seen me through my father's death, my career change, my darkest moments. This is awkward, I finally said, setting down my glass. Michael's shoulders relaxed slightly. Incredibly. I don't know how to do this, I admitted. I don't know how to sit across from you and pretend we're on a first date when I know how you look when you cry, when I've held your hand at your mother's funeral, when I know you've lied to me for months. He nodded, his eyes never leaving mine. I don't know how to do this either, but I want to try. The waiter arrived with our appetizers, breaking the moment. We ate in silence for a few minutes before Michael spoke again. Do you remember our honeymoon? When we got lost hiking in Vermont? I smiled despite myself. You insisted you knew the way back, and we ended up walking 5 miles in the wrong direction. And it started raining, he continued, and you were so mad at me. We were soaked through by the time we found the ranger station. But you didn't yell, he said softly. You just took my hand and said, next time, we bring a compass. I stared at my plate, tears threatening. I always thought we were each other's compass. We were, he said, his voice breaking slightly. I lost my way, but I don't want to stay lost. The meal continued, moments of connection interspersed with painful silences. We shared a dessert out of habit, our spoons carefully avoiding contact. When the check came, we both reached for it, fingers brushing briefly. Outside, the rain had stopped. The streets glistened under streetlights, the air washed clean. We stood awkwardly, neither wanting to end the night but unsure how to extend it. I could walk you home, Michael offered, then corrected himself. I mean, we could walk home together. The distinction wasn't lost on me. Home together, not home to each other. Not yet. As we walked the 15 blocks to our brownstone, the space between us seemed symbolic, close enough to feel each other's presence, far enough to avoid accidental touches. We talked about safer topics. The book I was reading, the project he was working on, the neighbor's new dog. Not our future. Not our pain. Not yet. At our front door, Michael hesitated. "Thank you for tonight," he said, as if I had given him a gift simply by showing up. I nodded, fishing my keys from my purse. "It was nice to remember," I said carefully, "that we can still talk." Inside, we stood in the hallway, the moment pregnant with possibility. This was usually when he'd kiss me goodnight. Instead, he cleared his throat. "I'll see you tomorrow." "Good night, Michael," I said, watching him climb the stairs to the guest room. Alone in our bedroom, my bedroom now, I kicked off my heels and sat on the edge of the bed. The evening replayed in my mind. His nervous smile, the way he still remembered how I took my coffee, the careful distance we maintained. It wasn't love rekindled, but it wasn't the end either. It was the space between, where healing might begin, or where we might finally admit that some fractures run too deep to mend. 6 weeks after Discovery Day, that's what I'd started calling it in my journal, I found myself standing in our spare bedroom, staring at the closet. Inside, behind winter coats and old suit bags, sat a cardboard box I hadn't opened in years. It contained all the baby things I'd collected during our attempts to conceive. A yellow onesie I'd bought on impulse, a stuffed elephant my mother had given me for someday, a children's book Michael had loved as a boy. Dr. Sharma had suggested we each confront something painful from our past as a step toward healing. Not to reopen wounds, she'd explained, but to acknowledge them properly. My hands trembled as I pulled the box from the shelf. Dust scattered in the afternoon light streaming through the blinds. 6 weeks of therapy, of cautious conversations over coffee mugs and across dinner plates, of Michael sleeping down the hall, and still, this felt like the most daunting moment yet. I sat cross-legged on the carpet, the unopened box before me. From downstairs came the faint sounds of Michael preparing lunch. We'd developed a weekend routine. He cooked, I cleaned up. Parallel play, like toddlers, together but separate. The cardboard flaps gave way easily, releasing the scent of hope preserved. A clean cotton smell mixed with the staleness of containment. The yellow onesie lay on top, still with its price tag. Below it, ultrasound images from a pregnancy that lasted 8 weeks. A journal where I'd written letters to a child who never arrived. A fertility tracking calendar with its constellation of dots and symbols. A star chart of disappointment. Tears spilled before I could stop them, quiet and steady. Not the violent sobs of fresh grief, but the gentle acknowledgement of a pain carried too long alone. "Sarah?" Michael stood in the doorway, a dish towel in his hands. I heard. He stopped when he saw the box. "Oh." I didn't look up, just continued sorting through the items, touching each one before setting it aside. "Dr. Sharma said we should face things we've been avoiding." He hesitated, then crossed the room and sat beside me, careful to maintain distance. "I didn't know you kept all this." "I couldn't throw it away," I said. It felt like erasing the possibility. Michael picked up the children's book, Goodnight Moon, and ran his fingers over the worn cover. "I remember when I bought this. After the second round of IVF, I was so sure it would work." I nodded, watching his hands. The same hands that had held mine through procedures, that had later touched another woman. We never really talked about it, did we? After the last miscarriage, we just stopped trying, stopped talking. "I thought talking about it hurt you too much," he said quietly. "And I thought you were relieved," I admitted, "that you didn't want children as much as I did." He looked up sharply. "Why would you think that?" The question hung between us, honest and bare. I pulled my knees to my chest, suddenly feeling exposed. "Because you moved on so easily. You threw yourself into work, started traveling more. You seemed fine." "I wasn't fine," he said, his voice thick. "I just didn't know how to help you. So I found places to be useful. Problems I could actually solve." For the first time, I saw his pain clearly. Not as an afterthought to mine, but as its own distinct grief. He'd carried it differently, hidden it better, but it had been there all along. "And Claire?" I asked, the name still bitter on my tongue. Michael set the book down carefully. "She was part of the running away. I'm not excusing it. But yes, it was easier to be with someone who didn't know about all this, who didn't look at me and see failure. Is that what you saw when you looked at me?" Failure? No, he said quickly. But I thought that's what you saw when you looked at me. We sat in silence, surrounded by the artifacts of our unborn family. So many misunderstandings layered over years, calcified into certainties neither of us had questioned. I miss who we were, I said finally. Before all this? He gestured at the box. No, before that, when we faced things together. I picked up the ultrasound image, traced the small white shape that had briefly been our future. Remember when the pipe burst in our first apartment and flooded the kitchen? We spent all night mopping and laughing. A small smile touched his lips. You made hot chocolate at 3 a.m. and we sat on the counter watching for new leaks. That's who we were, I said. Partners. When did we stop? I don't know, he replied. But I want to find our way back. I placed the ultrasound picture back in the box and closed it gently. Not to lock away the grief, but to acknowledge its place in our story. I'm not sure we can go back, but maybe we can go forward differently. Michael nodded, understanding. He stood, offering his hand to help me up. I took it, the first intentional touch we'd shared in weeks. His palm was warm against mine, familiar, yet new. Lunch is ready, he said, if you're hungry. I nodded, releasing his hand but feeling the impression of his touch linger. We left the room together, the box still on the floor but no longer hidden away. Like the truth between us. Painful, but finally in the light. The text message came on a Wednesday morning as I was preparing for a client meeting. My phone buzzed against the bathroom counter while I applied mascara, the screen lighting up with a name I didn't recognize. I thought you should know. He's still seeing her. My hand froze midair, mascara wand hovering inches from my eye. Below this message was a photo. Grainy, taken from a distance, but unmistakable. Michael, outside a cafe I didn't recognize, embracing a blonde woman. The timestamp, yesterday, 2:17 p.m., during his lunch break, when he'd told me he was meeting with his team. The bathroom suddenly felt airless. I gripped the counter, mascara forgotten, and stared at the image until it blurred. Then I scrolled up, looking for context, for the sender's identity. Nothing. Just this single message from an unknown number. I texted back, "Who is this?" The reply came instantly. "Someone who thinks you deserve better. There's more if you want to see it." My thumbs hovered over the screen. Did I want to see more? Did I need more evidence of betrayal? I'd spent 2 months rebuilding trust, brick by fragile brick. In therapy, Michael had sworn the affair was over. He'd given me access to his email, his location, his calendar. We'd started sleeping in the same bed again last week, though we hadn't yet crossed the final physical boundary. And now this. I set the phone down and finished my makeup with mechanical precision, my mind racing through possibilities. A misunderstanding, an old photo, a vindictive colleague, or the simple, devastating truth. He was still lying. At work, I moved through meetings like a ghost, smiling at appropriate moments, taking notes I would never read. During lunch, I stared at my phone, contemplating my next move. Finally, I typed, "Show me everything." 3 more photos arrived in succession. Michael and the woman, Claire I presumed, entering an apartment building, sitting close at a restaurant, his hand on hers. The final image. Michael looking over his shoulder as they walked, his expression wary, checking if he was being followed. Each image was like a physical blow. I excused myself to the bathroom and vomited my lunch, bile burning my throat. When I returned to my desk, another message waited. Her address is 1420 Riverside Apt 7B. He's there now. I checked the time. 2:36 p.m. Michael had a standing therapy appointment at 2 p.m. on Wednesdays. Individual sessions, doctor. Sharma had recommended alongside our couple's work. But apparently, therapy wasn't where he'd been going. "How do you know all this?" I texted. "I work with her. She's been bragging about still seeing him. Said you were clueless." Clueless. The word stung worse than the images. I gathered my things, told my assistant I was feeling ill, and left. Not to drive to Riverside Avenue. I wouldn't give either of them the satisfaction of a dramatic confrontation. But home. To pack. Our house was quiet. Sun streaming through windows I'd cleaned just days ago. believing I was maintaining a home rather than a stage set. I moved methodically through rooms, collecting essentials, clothes, toiletries, important documents. In the bedroom, I hesitated before the framed photo of us on our wedding day. Then I placed it face down in a drawer. I wrote a note, simple and direct. I know about Wednesday afternoons. Don't call me. I left it on the kitchen counter next to my house key. As I loaded my car, my phone rang. Michael. Wednesday therapy would be ending now. I declined the call and started driving, no destination in mind except away. But halfway down our street, I pulled over. Something felt wrong. The anonymous texts, the convenient surveillance, the theatrical timing. It was too perfect, too calculated. I pulled out my phone and called not Michael, but Dr. Sharma's office. This is Sarah Bennett. I need to confirm if my husband attended his session today. The receptionist paused. I'm not supposed to share that information, but since you're also Dr. Sharma's patient. Yes, Mr. Bennett was here until just now. A chill ran through me. If Michael was in therapy, he couldn't have been at the apartment on Riverside. I dialed his number with shaking hands. Sarah? His voice was concerned. I just got out of session. Everything okay? Where are you now? I asked, my voice tight. Walking to my car. Why? What's happened? Someone sent me pictures of you with Claire. Today. Said you were at her apartment right now. Silence stretched between us. Then, that's not possible. I've been with Dr. Sharma for the past hour. Before that, I was at the office. Can you come home? Now? I'm already on my way. When Michael arrived, I showed him the messages, the photos. His face darkened as he scrolled through them. These aren't from today, he said firmly. This was weeks ago, before everything. This cafe. We met here the day you confronted me. And this restaurant was the day before. I ended things that night. I studied his face, looking for signs of deception. Then why would someone send them now, claiming they're recent? I don't know. He ran a hand through his hair. Unless what? Claire didn't take the breakup well. She's called a few times, sent emails. I've been ignoring them. I felt sick again. So this is what? Revenge? Trying to sabotage our reconciliation? Michael nodded slowly. I think so. I'm so sorry, Sarah. I never thought she'd do something like this. I sank onto the couch, the adrenaline of the past hours leaving me drained. My half-packed suitcase sat in the hallway, a testament to how close I'd come to walking away again. I believed it, I whispered, without question. I was ready to leave. Michael sat beside me, careful not to touch me. I don't blame you. After what I did, why wouldn't you believe it? The truth of his words hung between us. Trust, once broken, fractures in predictable patterns. I'd been waiting for the other shoe to drop, for proof that hope was foolish. I need to call Dr. Sharma, I said finally. We should talk about this in our next session. Michael nodded, relief visible in the loosening of his shoulders. Whatever you need. That night, I unpacked my suitcase slowly, each item a choice to stay, to try again. The anonymous number never texted again, but the incident left a question I couldn't shake. How long would I be looking over my shoulder, waiting for proof that this healing was an illusion? Autumn arrived with a vengeance, stripping trees bare and sending rain to batter our windows. 4 months had passed since Discovery Day. 4 months of therapy, of painful conversations, of slow rebuilding. The false message incident had shaken us both, but strangely, it had also accelerated our healing. Nothing like a common enemy to forge an alliance. Claire had eventually confessed when confronted by Michael with the evidence. She'd apologized, claiming loneliness and hurt had clouded her judgment. I didn't forgive her. That wasn't mine to give. But I understood the desperation that drives us to destructive acts. After all, hadn't I stood in our bedroom once, scissors in hand, contemplating cutting Michael's suits to ribbons? Dr. Sharma had called it progress that I could find empathy even for the woman who'd shared my husband's bed. Healing isn't linear, she reminded us in our sessions, but it is possible. October brought our anniversary, 11 years. We didn't celebrate exactly, but acknowledged it with a quiet dinner at home. Michael had given me a letter rather than a gift. Pages of reflection and regret and hope. I'd read it twice, then folded it carefully into my journal, neither accepting nor rejecting its sentiments, just holding them, examining them from all angles. Now, on a rain-soaked Saturday, we faced a more practical milestone. The lease on our house was ending in 30 days. Renew or move on, a decision that felt symbolic of our larger choice. We could look at other options, Michael suggested as we sat at the kitchen table, lease renewal papers before us. A fresh start might be good. I cradled my coffee mug, warming my hands. Or too much change at once. He nodded, understanding my caution. We'd been careful these past months, rebuilding our connection through small moments rather than grand gestures. Movie nights where we actually discussed the film afterward. Weekend breakfasts that stretched into lazy conversations. His hand finding mine during therapy. An anchor when emotions threatened to capsize us. "What do you want, Sarah?" he asked softly. Not just about the house. The question hung in the air between us, heavier than the lease decision. What did I want? The answer had evolved over these months, shifting like light through stained glass. Different colors depending on the angle, the time of day, the weather of my heart. I paused, sorting through the tangle of emotions. I want to trust again, not just you, but myself, my judgment, my instincts. And do you? Trust yourself? I considered this, tracing the rim of my mug. More than I did. I'm learning to listen to myself again. And what is yourself saying? About us. Outside, rain pelted the windows, a steady drumming that filled the silence as I gathered my thoughts. For months, I'd measured our marriage in opposing columns. Reasons to stay, reasons to go. The affair in one column, our history in the other. His betrayal weighed against his remorse. The pain balanced against possibility. I think, I said slowly, that I'm tired of keeping score, of measuring every interaction against what happened. It's exhausting, Michael. Some days I forget. We're just us, talking about a movie or laughing at something silly. And then I remember, and it's like this cloud descends. He nodded, his eyes never leaving mine. I know. I feel it too. The moment your expression changes. And I know you're remembering. But those moments are getting fewer, I admitted. Farther apart. They are, he agreed. For me too. I took a deep breath. I think I want to stay. In this house. In this marriage. Not because I've forgotten or because it doesn't matter anymore. But because what we're building now feels real. More honest than before. Relief softened his features. I want that too. More than anything. But I need you to understand something. I continued, my voice steady. I'm not staying because I'm afraid to leave. Or because it's comfortable. I'm choosing this actively. And I can unchoose it. I understand, he said, reaching for my hand across the table. I'm choosing too. Every day. I let him take my hand, our fingers intertwining. This was the truth we'd discovered in therapy, that marriage isn't a single choice made once at an altar, but thousands of tiny choices made daily in kitchens and bedrooms, and in the spaces between words. So we stay, I said, glancing at the lease renewal. We stay, he echoed, squeezing my hand. That night, for the first time since before the affair, we made love. Not the desperate, clinging intimacy of early marriage, nor the perfunctory connection it had become before his betrayal. This was something new. Tender but honest, passionate but patient. Our bodies remembered each other, but we approached as if discovering anew, attentive to changes both physical and emotional. Afterward, lying in the quiet dark with his arm around me, I felt neither triumph nor doubt, but a calm certainty. Not that everything was fixed. It wasn't. Might never be completely, but that we were facing the right direction, moving forward together rather than circling the same wounded ground. I love you, Michael whispered against my hair. Words he'd said countless times before, but rarely with such humble certainty. I love you too, I replied, and meant it in all its complex truth. Love not as the giddy emotion of new romance, but as the weathered choice it becomes through hardship. More textured, more tested, more real. Outside our window, the rain had stopped. The silence felt like a breath held, a moment of suspension between what had been and what might still be. I closed my eyes and listened to Michael's heartbeat, steady beneath my ear. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, old doubts might resurface. The work of rebuilding would continue. But tonight, in this quiet moment of connection, I allowed myself to believe in possibility. Not happily ever after. I was too wise for that now. But perhaps something more valuable. A happiness honestly earned. Eyes wide open. Day by ordinary day.